Alright everybody, we've got a fun one today. We've seen a lot of little baby crayfish in the water. Okay, normal. So what do? Well, you try to tie some small crayfish imitations. But we're going to take it one step further. We've got a new spawn Simi Seal dub called Cray to Play, and it's going to change the way you feed these fish. Grab your stuff, let's get busy. Alright, so in the vise, we've got the Ahrex FW555. And for a bead, got the Spawn slotted tungsten football bead in black, and this is size 5.5 millimeter. I'm going to use some non-lead 0.015 wire here just to solidify that bead placement. Looking for 7 or 8 wraps, nothing fancy, nothing crazy. Once I've got that wire on, I'll go ahead and trim out the front. And using the inside of my scissor, I'll just round off that point where I cut it, and I'll do the same on the back. And get that mashed down a little bit, and at that point I'm going to make sure the bulk of the bead is underneath the hook, which jig oriented would look like that, and that's what we want. Alright, for some thread, got my new favorite addiction here, some Veevus 50D, and this is in black. And yes, I do love this thread. Trim off that tag end of thread, and let's get some wraps on those wires. You know how this goes. Got to lock it all in place. So I'm going to take my time, plenty of passes over these wires. Smaller thread takes a few more passes just because it's going to slip in between each wrap a little quicker. And that's that. So now we've got the bead solidified, not going anywhere. And now I'm coming down, building a little thread base here, right to where that hook starts to curve down. Alright, so if you can tie a Simi Seal leech, you can tie this fly. It's sort of a Simi Seal leech plus. What I'm going to do for the tail, even though it's going to be the mouth parts and the antennae and all that, I've got some Shaggy dub, and I've mixed about half hot orange and half black. And I'm going to treat this like any other rubber leg. I straighten them out, make a nice little pile of what I think is the appropriate amount, and then I'm just going to fold it over the thread, bring that thread and all the rubber legs here from the Shaggy dub right up to the shank, and then tie it down. And before I let go here, make sure it's got plenty of wraps on there, and voila, you see it's this nice little flower of rubber goodness coming out the back of this thing, and it's going to wiggle and move and get these fish's attention. And right now there are just so many crayfish in our water systems. I bet you it's the same where you are. But these fish don't always go for those big 4 or 5 inch crayfish. They're looking for the smaller ones. You know, when these guys are babies and young, their shells aren't quite as hard and all that. Softer meal, easier to digest, and much easier to get in your mouth too. Alright, so right now I'm just making a dubbing loop. I'll get my little knot here and solidify that. I would just like to tell you too, like, the vast majority of this fly is already tied. We just need to solidify this loop, fill it in, wrap it, and we're done. So this is definitely one of those flies you could fill a box in a hurry. Alright, so there's my dubbing loop. I've already made a little dubbing ladder that I'm going to throw into this loop. And since I'm tying this pretty small, I'll let you know, like the standard length Simi is fine. But on such a small hook, I do like to trim it just a little bit. So in all actuality, I'm using roughly 2/3 to 3/4 of the standard spawn Simi length fiber right here, just because I don't want it to drape over the back too much and be too cumbersome for their small size 10 jig hook. Alright, now I got that filled in there. I would say I'm looking at a 3-inch stack of dubbing. I base it off my scissor length, so I know my scissors are always the same length. They're not going to change overnight. And so that's what I use to measure my little dubbing ladders before I throw them into my loop. And if it's, you know, one scissor length and it comes out perfect, I know all the rest for that same hook size need to be one scissor length for my dubbing ladder. Alright, try to keep these rubber, the Shaggy dub out of the loop if you can. And then I'm just going to come in here with a little brush, get rid of any trap fibers, loose fibers, make this thing spread out the way it's supposed to in a loop. Alright, pretty good. A couple extra twists just to make sure we didn't loosen anything, and we're ready to wrap. And as I wrap this, I'm just going to coax with my off tying hand all those fibers toward the back so that we get a nice finished look on the entire fly. There we go. It's starting already. So this Cray to play dubbing here, it's got a lot of depth to it, meaning when you put this in the water, it's not just going to be a bright orange or a rusty orange. There's a lot of depth. So you're going to have some blues and some awkward colors. I don't want to give it all away, but there's a lot going on in this dub, and the fish love it. So whether you're fishing for sea run cutthroats, rainbow trout, brown trout, grayling, anything like that, this is a great color of spawn simi. Now for those of you that like throwing crayfish coloration at bass, we do offer this in Mega, and so make sure you are buying both standard for your trout patterns, Mega for your big trout patterns and bass patterns. Alright, so you see my little twister there came out, no biggie. We'll just do it by hand like so. Alright, so at this point I've got my body filled in. I'm just going to bring all that back, including the rest of our loop that we made, and that way nothing can come undone from the loop itself, which means none of the body can come out. Alright, at this point I'm just going to back those materials up again, really fill in this neck with a nice thread down right there, and then everyone's favorite pastime, the whip finish. We're going to do two of them in here because, well, I can tell you from personal experience this thing is going to get smashed in a big way, so I want this to be as strong as possible. There we go. Two whip finishes served up for you. Trim out that thread, and before I put any head cement on, I'd like to come back in with my brush and really get pretty aggressive here, freeing up all those trapped fibers that we missed, getting rid of any loose fibers that aren't going to stay for us. No sense leaving them in there. Let's just get them out like so. And as far as trimming the Shaggy dub here for our antennae and mouth parts, I'm going to leave that up to you guys, what you think works best. My advice is to toss this in the water a little bit and watch it swim. To me, I can live with this. It's uneven. There's a lot of different length fibers here, and this whole thing is just going to wiggle, and fish can't help but eat it. So I'm not going to trim those. Aha! Let's get a little Loon hard head clear and solidify all these thread wraps here. Again, the fish really like this color, so I'm telling you now, tie these as strong as you can and tie a good knot onto your leader. Alright, so there's my little baby crayfish, if you will, even though it's a leech. And just for you guys at home, I've got a bowl of water sitting here, so let's see what this dub looks like when it's wet. I think you're going to like it. Now, since this isn't swimming in the water, of course, all that shag dub is just going to kind of condense. But in the water, this stuff separates and flows and moves. It's really tantalizing. The fish can't help themselves. So there you are, a baby crayfish tied with the new spawn Simi Cray to play. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit like and subscribe. Leave any comments below, and we will see you on the water.